You're probably staring at a list of ice makers and wondering if any of them are actually worth the money, especially when a bad pick can sit in the back of your kitchen taking up space and humming forever without delivering the kind of ice you really need. I get that hesitation. You don't want to pour cash into a unit that ends up being more of a conversation piece than a workhorse. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'm going to walk through why the Manitowoc RNF0620A might be the one that finally makes sense for your situation, and when it's better to keep scrolling. First off, let's talk about the kind of ice we're after. Nugget ice, those soft, chewable little cylinders, has a cult following for a reason. It's the ice that makes a frozen drink feel like a treat rather than a watered-down mess, and it's also the ice that doctors recommend for cold therapy because it conforms to a sore joint while staying solid longer. The RNF0620A promises a bit-sized nugget with 85% ice content, which translates to a higher ice-to-water ratio than many other machines. In plain terms, you get more ice and less slush in each scoop, so your drinks stay colder longer and you waste less water. That alone can be a game changer if you're serving smoothies, cocktails, or using ice for injury recovery on a regular basis. Now, capacity is where the RNF0620A really separates the casual buyer from the commercial user. The spec sheet says it can produce up to 613 pounds of ice per day. That's enough to keep a full-service bar stocked, fill a catering truck, or keep an office break room humming with fresh ice for an entire shift. If you're just looking for a weekend party upgrade, that amount might feel like overkill. You'll likely be paying for a machine that runs well beyond what your weekly usage demands. On the flip side, for a small restaurant, a juice bar, or a family that runs a home-based catering gig, that output means you never have to worry about running out mid-service, and you won't need a second unit to keep up. Space and installation are the next practical considerations. The RNF0620A is a 22-inch tall, air-cooled unit, which means it needs a dedicated spot with enough clearance for airflow at the back and top. It's not a countertop gadget you can slide under a kitchen island. You'll likely be looking at a pantry, a utility closet, or a commercial-style prep area. The air-cooled design is quieter than a water-cooled system, but it still produces a low-level hum that's noticeable in a quiet office or a small apartment. If you're sensitive to background noise, that's something to factor in. Reliability is where Manitowoc tries to earn its reputation. The machine uses high-load, maintenance-free bearings, which are meant to reduce wear and keep the motor running smooth for years. In real-world terms, you won't have to schedule frequent lubrication checks or worry about a bearing seizing up during a busy lunch rush. The lack of moving parts that need regular attention translates to less downtime, which is exactly the kind of peace of mind a small business owner or a busy host wants. However, maintenance-free doesn't mean never service. You'll still need to decale the unit periodically if you have hard water, and the bin will need to be emptied and cleaned to prevent any buildup of slime or mold. Those are small chores, but they're part of owning any ice maker. If you're already invested in a beverage dispensing system, the RNF0620A has a built-in advantage. It pairs with Manitowoc's Multiplex beverage dispenser for an unbeatable soft drink experience, according to the product description. What that looks like in practice is a seamless flow from ice production to drink dispensing without having to shuffle ice bins or manually load cups. For a coffee shop that also sells iced teas and lemonades, that integration can shave seconds off each order, which adds up during a morning rush. For a home user, the benefit is mostly about convenience. You can set the machine to fill a bin, then pull a cup of ice without fiddling with trays. Now, let's talk cost versus value. The RNF0620A sits in the higher price bracket for home use ice makers, largely because of its production capacity and the proprietary Nugget technology. If you compare it to a standard countertop ice cube maker that costs a fraction of the price, the difference is clear. You get a massive daily output, soft Nugget ice, and a machine built for continuous commercial use. If you're only ever making a few drinks a week, that extra capacity is paying for itself in idle production. The sweet spot is where you're consistently needing a few hundred pounds of ice per week. Think a family that runs a weekly brunch, a sports team that needs ice for post-game recovery, or a boutique that offers frozen cocktails every night. So who should hit add to cart, and who should walk away? If you run a small bar, a juice or smoothie shop, a catering service,